Welcome everyone.
Welcome.
Today, Andre and I are going to talk about a topic that I think we both care about a lot, about how to strengthen security in a world where account takeover is really becoming a big problem. We'll talk a bit about these challenges and what we are hearing from people, and also about some of the ways to mitigate these issues. Feel free to ask questions. I'll actually say a few things about that before we start. So you are all automatically muted during this discussion. You don't need to mute or unmute. This session will be recorded, so you'll receive an email with this recording in the next few days. And there is a Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, please type them in the portal, and we'll answer them either during or at the end of this session. So let's start with some introductions. Andre, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ed. Yeah, so I'm Andre, the CTO of IC Consult, with IC Consult now since 20 years and taking care of our service portfolio, making sure we are up to date when it comes to delivery methods, that we are aware of all the important trends, new things happening around digital identities, and can provide it to our customers. So, and yeah, IC Consult is a system integrator, consulting company, managed service provider when it comes to identity-related cybersecurity in Europe, with a large subsidiary in North America, in India and China, and well, focusing on protecting everything related to the digital identities in the broader area of IT. We are vendor independent, but of course we have partnerships with important leading vendors in the market. Therefore, it's great to be here together with you, Ed. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So, hey everyone, my name is Ed Kovetz. I'm the CEO and one of the founders at Silverfort. Silverfort is a company that is focused on identity security. We have a solution, a platform that really takes care of identity security in a very broad way, all the way from the modern cloud applications to the most legacy systems that were difficult to protect before. So the unique thing about our offering is that we can protect even systems that couldn't be protected with any identity security controls before, legacy systems and command line tools and industrial systems and service accounts and things like that, all the way to the modern cloud applications. And we've been working with IC Consult for a while, and I think that it's really a great partnership. So I'm very happy to be here today with Andre. Actually, for the second time, right? It's our second webinar, so it's a series at this point. So glad to be here and talk to you about another very important topic. And I think we can get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to stop the presentation that
Yes.
people don't have to watch our faces on the PowerPoint slide all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So let's introduce the topic a bit. I think that a lot of the people here are probably dealing with cybersecurity or identity in different ways. So I think it will not be a surprise to them if I say that the rise of data breaches and cybercrime and attacks on different organizations is just increasing, despite all the different things we're doing to try to mitigate those threats. And specifically, account takeover has become just a massive threat. A lot of data breaches start by compromising someone's account, someone's credentials, and using those legitimate user identities and credentials, they cause a lot of damage. So I would love to hear from you, Andre, a bit about your perspective about this critical issue. Like, how is it impacting businesses? What do you see when you talk to people about that?
Yeah, and that question comes up a lot nowadays, and I like to answer it with a kind of risk management approach. So we have, on the one side, we have the the impact of an account takeover, and the other perspective, the other dimension is the likelihood that it has happened. And if you look now from a kind of high level perspective on that, the impact of a account takeover has dramatically increased, but based on, well, we, we talk about digital transformation everywhere, and what does that mean? Yeah, a lot of critical activities can today be just performed with the digital world, and you need to have your digital identity for that. And after a successful account takeover, all these operations can be done by the attacker. So that kind of physical layer that was protecting a couple of things in the past is disappearing more and more, and that really drives the impact an account takeover has in this all digital world nowadays. And and then the second aspect, that's the likelihood, and that's something would say I'm really concerned about, because we see that based on a lot of trends, the likelihood is increasing dramatically. So first of all, we have remote work all the time. Yeah? So a lot of people don't meet each other in person anymore, and in the digital world, the account takeover, that is really make it much more easier to cause damage based on that. Another aspect is the social networks. And a lot of people sharing a lot of information online, and not talking about things like Instagram and TikTok, but also about things like LinkedIn. Yeah, so
Yeah,
which gives an potential attacker a lot of context information about you. That's perfect for spear phishing, and that's today a problem. But in the future, in the very very near future, uh, this will go up something like that.
yeah,
So Bruce Schneier recently published this study with research together with others that was looking in how is Gen AI helping in making spear phishing more efficient, and the outcome was that Gen AI is decreasing the efforts for an attacker for spear phishing by 95% to reach the same level of quality a professional spear fisher has, with kind of 60% likelihood to bring the victim to click in the link in the mail. Yeah. So and
yes,
that's really it should concern all of us. So spear phishing is a problem nowadays, but will be much stronger problem in the future. Yeah.
yeah. It actually concerns me a lot also, not just as a vendor, but as a CEO. I see all the times attempt of people to tempt our employees to give information by impersonating people, even me sometimes. We have a lot of
Yeah.
employees that tell me that some random number or email address
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
texted to them as if it's me, the CEO, asking them to give information or do things.
Yeah.
And we're obviously investing a lot in making sure people are aware of that and are careful of that. But
Hmm. Hmm.
the problem with all these attacks is that it's enough to find one employee that will fall for this, for the
Exactly.
attackers to start calling.
Mhm. Or finding the right point in time that helps to make that story more valid. Yeah. So you're really on vacation, and it really might happen that something unexpected or what was causing you to use another channel, these kind of things, and there's no possibility to verify that immediately by
Yeah,
reaching out to you via Microsoft Teams or whatever, yeah, which gives a little bit higher a level of evidence maybe, and then it can
yeah,
get risky, and I assume especially people like somewhere in the CFO area are very often victim of these kinds of activities, and then it comes
yeah.
to, well, things we
Mm,
typically then read in the newspaper. Yeah. So I like beginning of this year, the story in Hong Kong where there was a Gen AI used for deepfake in a video conference, including voice, yeah, for a CEO fraud, and that's in real time, and that's somehow impressive, but at the same time very very concerning, right? Because it's just a
Very.
kind of beginning. It's kind of POC, but it was successful, and that will evolve.
I'm worried that, pretty soon it will be truly hard to tell the difference between, if somebody talking to you is really who they say they are or not. So I think that people will fall for more of these attacks. It's inevitable. I don't think that we are ready as a humanity to this.
Mm,
It's happening pretty fast. And I think that when we look at it from a cyber defense perspective, I think that we all need to assume that some of the identities of our employees will be compromised. Some people will be tricked and some people will fall for it, and we need to take much more of a assumed breach approach of
mm,
defense in
mm,
depth. We need to assume that some accounts will be compromised, and now we need to start asking ourselves, okay, so if an account is compromised, what can it now do? Like, what damage can it cause? How will I prevent it from spreading in my
mm,
environment?
mm.
Right, and it's a tough
E-
problem.
Exactly, it's a tough problem, and I think that's a one of the reasons why the new topic identity threat detection and response is now very popular in addition to
Yeah.
zero trust. So do you want to elaborate a little bit on why ITR is more important now than ever before?
Yeah, sure. So I think that for a long time, this idea of looking at authentication and identity data and trying to find threats has evolved. And over the recent years, it actually got a name, which is identity threat detection and response. And I think that the goal here is to detect accounts that are compromised or use of identities in a way that seems like an attack or a threat, and respond to it, right? And try to do something about it. By the way, a lot of people, I think, confuse ITDR with identity security posture or hygiene, which is more about vulnerabilities and exposures. So I think there is a difference between the two.
Mm,
ITDR is more about you are actually getting attacked right now, and you need to find that and find that on time and react to it, as opposed to identity security posture management or exposure management, where we're looking for vulnerable protocols and bad configurations and things that could expose you to future attacks.
mm,
So I think that both are important, but when we talk about an actual attack that is happening right now, ITDR is becoming crucial. I think that it's actually a few years late in a way, because identity has become an attack surface, a big attack surface for years now. And you see so many data breaches where identity is the way that they get into the network, the way that they spread within the network, the way that they get to the sensitive resources. But for some reason, it never got that treatment. There was
mm,
a huge market for endpoint security and for cloud security and for network security. And somehow identity security was a little neglected. I mean, there were some solutions for multi-factor authentication and privileged access management, but nothing that really looked holistically at this attack surface and at this threat. And this is why this market is now emerging. I think that it's a great thing, and more companies are looking into ITDR and other related things, and basically finally looking at identity as a critical attack surface and how can they stop this source of so many breaches from being such a big blind spot.
mm. Yeah, exactly. So I would say the industry was looking for, or the professionals in the identity access management industry were focusing a lot on preventing the attack, yeah, and not paying a lot of attention to detect and respond to it because it was somehow yeah, responsibility of the SOC. We are providing some log files and that's it. But I think that was really kind of huge learning in the whole industry to understand that we now, from a security perspective and from the identity access management perspective, the professions have work together hands in hands. The solution providers will have to work together hands in hands to
Yeah,
really focusing on understanding that an attack is ongoing and then stopping it right away. And this is not about, hey, there's something during the authentication suspicious, therefore I ask for MFA and then I'm good. No, we are talking about the situation in which the user was victim to maybe spear phishing and is now providing the the answer to the challenge. Even if there's a number matching in the app, yeah. So
yeah,
you just have to explain it, and then he's clicking yes, and now we are talking about the situation. The
yeah,
attacker has a MFA session with a high level of authentication assurance, and now we have to still to understand something is going on and stopping that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you an
Well,
example. We recently looked into a case where a big company in the US was attacked by a group called Scattered Spider. They were causing a lot of damage, right? They attacked MGM. It was very high profile.
yeah.
So another Fortune 500 company there got breached, and they called us in order to help. So we immediately deployed the product and started
Mhm.
to find the attackers and defend against them. And what happened is, and this was the kind of the method of this group, is they tricked some of the employees into approving the MFA, which is
Mm,
unfortunately very possible. Again, you only need one employee to fall for it. So they already had accounts within the network. Then once you're in the network, just because of how vulnerable things like Active Directory are, once you're in the network with one account, you can just move to any other computer, find other credentials, and at some
mm,
point you find a privileged one, and you find privileged users, privileged service accounts. It can cause so
mm,
much damage. So finding the account takeover event was one thing, but then there's also the part which ITDR takes care of as well, of looking for lateral movement and looking for those attempts to move inside your environment once they're already in. That's critical. So the fact that we were able to stop that, that was the only way possible to stop them from encrypting the whole network, because it was all through the identity layer.
yeah, and that's something what is very often underestimated. So the time until lateral movement happens. Yeah, so um, we are not talking about weeks or days or hours. No, we are talking about minutes, yeah, and then
Yeah,
it depends. Yeah, but recently I read a study and there was some, I'm not sure about the average value. It was something between 40, 50 minutes, but the fastest one was below 2 minutes. Yeah, so um, so the ticket is coming in. Yeah, there might be something suspicious. Yeah, and before the ticket is taken, the attacker is already in the next reached the next level in the next systems. Yeah, so
absolutely.
and yeah, so without having a solution in place and to allow you to react on that kind of activity when it comes to lateral movement, you will just not be able to be fast enough in stopping the attacker. Yeah. So that's really
This
getting
is
very serious.
I think it's a super important point. I fully agree, and I think it will actually get worse with the more attackers use AI and everything becomes fully automated. I mean, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I think people here probably remember, you had to be a genius to attack a company, right? To be a hacker, right? Hackers were writing, these complex tools and doing things
Mm,
live on keyboard. Now it's all automated. It's all tools that you can buy online. You can use AI. It's becoming too easy and too fast. So I think that, like you said, the ability to not only detect but to stop the attack in real time is becoming critical, because detection is going to be too late with these really fast attacks, right?
And exactly, and there's another aspect. Yeah? It's not about hey, I'm the genius. I'm able to get that system. No, it's a business. It's about earning
Yeah,
money. It's a
true.
business case. You can at the end of the day, you just have to have the wish to attack and to get into that. There's no more requirements and having maybe a little bit of budget for that kind of activity, and that's it. And that's also changing the situation a lot.
Yeah,
Being able to get this kind of spear phishing, account takeovers as a service, yeah, in the darknet, and
yeah.
that also should,
The
yeah.
the thing that I think this also means is that because attacks are becoming a business, they have the same kind of cost effectiveness calculation that we all used to from our businesses. So
Yeah.
when an attacker wants to breach into companies, usually it's not about some agenda. They don't want to just cause damage to this company. They're trying to make money. The good news about that, at least, is that if we make those environments strong enough, then at some point it's not that it's impossible to breach, but it becomes too expensive or too complex, right?
Yeah.
So no network is impossible to breach, but if we put enough defenses and we make it enough complex, then the attacker will just go somewhere else, because it's just not economic for them to go after this target. I think that in that sense, when people talk about ITDR, I think that a lot of them are actually talking about detection only. So to the point we just talked about, I think that one of the most important things when you're looking at an ITDR solution is to understand how is it not just sending you alerts, because I think the last thing we all need is more alerts in our SOC, right? But how does it do something about them? How does it actually, block the malicious access, or challenge the user for MFA to figure out if it's really them, or ask a manager, is this legitimate access? Do something automated in real time, because the only way to fight against automated attacks is with automated defense. That's the only thing that's going to be
Exactly.
faster.
Exactly, yeah. No, completely agree on that one. So I think that's an area in which we really have to take that perimeter of identity serious, and protecting as good as possible, and via, let's say, the same kind of methods used in cybersecurity in other areas when it comes to network, to infrastructure, to endpoints.
Yeah,
Already for years. Yeah, of course, it's from technological perspective a little bit different, but from the pattern is more or less it's more or less the same. And I think that's where the identity industry now is now really
I
really
agree.
improving.
I think that it's
Mm,
it's a good development. I think that for years, identity security was a little bit of an afterthought. It was a
mm,
feature in the identity management platforms, right? So if you had an identity management platform, there were also some local security features that was securing that, but they weren't really securing maybe another identity platform that you have. So the infrastructure had some security capabilities, but that's kind of similar to how uh, cloud security or endpoint security were in the early days. I think that what we are
mm,
seeing now is finally identity security is becoming its own category, and something that is really a solution that can sit on top of all these islands. Not only the cloud, not only Active Directory, not only privileged users, everyone, everywhere, all the time. And that's what we really need in order to understand identity security fully. And I think that it's finally happening. Like a lot of vendors are going there, a lot of companies are looking for those solutions. And I think that as an industry, we're learning a lot from this process that it's finally going to.
mm.
I hope that in a few years we'll be able to bring it to a point where identity is no longer the weakest link, which I think it is right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, and well,
So
we are
maybe,
we are improve
oh, sorry.
and we are learning, improving as an industry because we are forced to do so, right? If I looking into that kind of data breaches 3, 4, 5 years ago, yeah, a lot of them were really caused by weak configurations. It was often more kind of accident than a sophisticated attack required to get hands on that data. That kind of um, gaps in the prevention layer, they
Yeah,
there's a significant improvement. No? Now it's not happening because there was just a lazy administrator. No, now it's happening because there was a very sophisticated attack going on, and that's really the change. But the impact is larger than ever before. Yeah.
for sure. I think that maybe I would love to open it for questions soon, because we have a few questions from people. But I do want to ask you something that I hear from a lot of customers, and it's the fact that even though security is obviously critical, and we need to defend our organizations, one of the challenges is that it often comes with a price in operational efficiency, in the way that the organization works. And
Mhm,
balancing security and productivity or efficiency is really hard, especially when we talk about identity, because identity security is probably the element of security that faces the end user the most, right?
mhm.
The need to authenticate and to prove who you are and to log in again and again, all of these complex things could have a price. And I know that you and your team are working a lot with organizations to do it the right way. So any thoughts or advice on that?
Yeah, so from my point of view, um, I would say there are two tracks. Yeah. One track is I would say kind of strategic journey that is really building. all parts of the IT organization based on a zero trust pattern. But that typically requires a lot of modernizations to take place. Yeah? So getting rid of old protocols, old systems to new modern systems, bringing in a lot of foundational things, but that takes time, and the improvement comes over time, step by step. Yeah. At the same time, a lot of super critical IT assets are around the Active Directory. And that is, as you said before, that's the weakest link in the overall journey. And they are really, from my point of view, there's really the value in focusing on increasing the security posture around the Active Directory and bringing in the capabilities to be able to detect and respond to an attack exactly there, because the impact is then affecting all the systems where you need a lot of time to improve their capabilities when it comes to security. Yeah? So in other words, it's great that you have deployed your phishing resistant MFA solution, but with an NTLM hash, likely an attacker would still be able to cause so
Yeah.
much damage, yeah, without being enforced to do that nice phishing resistant MFA. Yeah? And I think this is really the kind of area where it is very valuable to also work, of course, together with your colleagues at Silverford to really improve the security posture in that area.
Yeah. No, and I know that we've worked together with a lot of customers to do that and to add those security controls, the visibility and the enforcement. I think that maybe another thing that I talk a lot with customers about is the fact that the part of the impact on the user experience and the productivity comes from the fact that identity security right now is built in silos. So you have one security control for the cloud, right, with Entra, right, and you also have something for the on-prem, and you have something for another cloud, and maybe you acquire the company, then they have another solution, so now you have that too. And not only it's expensive, but also it's a really bad user experience, because if I just logged in to Okta successfully, why do I need to log in again to another environment in another way? Because I just logged in. And by the way, the opposite is even worse. If I failed to log in to one of these solutions, why am I still allowed to log into the other environments? It's all because it's a bunch of islands that don't really work together. So I think that the fact that the identity infrastructure is fragmented, which it is, right, just like any infrastructure, doesn't mean that identity security has to be fragmented. And that is not only because security is only done right when it's holistic, it's also because of user experience. Imagine that somebody could log into Okta or Entra and prove who they are, and then if they try to log into another environment, as long as we know it's still them, we don't need to verify them again. It's I think will be a big impact on how users feel, because if we get to a point where users hate those security controls and they just try to bypass them, then, like we said before, somebody is going to trick them because they're just approving MFA without even thinking about it. So what's the point? Like we need to get to a point where it's not too painful, so that they can actually do it without making those mistakes. But it's an effort, it's a journey for a lot of companies, right? Um,
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And of course, we also have to make sure that we bring in mechanisms in place that don't allow the user to prove a transaction not started by him but by an attacker. Yeah? But in theory that's easy. We have things like FIDO2 passkey and so on. But in the real life, there are so many limitations
yes.
coming in and making it difficult to really enroll that to all kind of use cases. And even if there are still weak links that stay. I noticed we got one a very good question on that topic. So question is, when users have unphishable credentials, will it lead to more attacks on the IT help desk people operating the account recovery process? I think the short answer is
Yeah,
of course, yes. You mentioned MGM before, and I think if I remember it correctly, there was a help desk involved, so the attacker was able to convince the help desk to get his device enrolled as MFA device, and then it
yeah,
doesn't matter it's phishing resistant. You just use it. Yeah. So that clearly is happening, and that and also the question is then what are phishing resistant trust anchors in which you can still rely in such a situation, because even with synchronized passkeys, um, there will be the situation that the end user can't access for any reason anymore. So that kind of corner case you have to deal with. Yeah? And there we have to go into other areas to provide efficient solutions there. So I expect that we also see a stronger uplift when it comes to third-party biometrics, for instance. Yeah? So independently from any devices to be used in these kind of processes. And uh, hope also is that decentralized identity, so digital passports, these kind of things with a strong holder binding will help us in the future there as well. But I think there's still a few years before this will be really
yeah.
used a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that we should definitely invest in these types of solutions and try to defend against these threats. But I also think that we have to assume that some accounts will be compromised because of either manipulating the IT help desk or the user. And in a big company, you'll stop a lot of these, but one of them will fall. And I think that we need to also look at how to protect against account takeover, not by only trying to make it unfishable or unstealable, but also assuming that if it gets stolen, we can identify that. We can see that it's now doing something different. I can tell you that by looking at a lot of attacks that we have analyzed for our customers, we've seen that when an attacker compromises an account, what it does with this account is so much different than what the regular user does every day, right?
Hmm.
The regular user goes every day to his email, to maybe some application that they use. Then you see it get compromised, and suddenly you see it reaching out to all these network file shares and doing RDP to all
Hmm.
these other places and running command
Hmm.
line tools like PSExec, and it's
Hmm.
just a whole different thing. The problem is that so many of the current security teams with the current tools they have, they only look at the initial login to the network. So
Hmm.
when you only look at the login to the network, you can't really tell what they're doing inside. So I think a lot of the one of the biggest steps that I see organizations take that put them in a better place is to have a solution that truly looks at everything they do inside the network also, because then you see a huge difference between what an attacker does and what the regular user does. And that kind of behavioral analysis, which can also leverage AI these days,
Yeah.
is making sure that even if somebody got tricked and gave their credentials, at least you can catch that quickly.
Exactly, and I think that's not only limited to your own network, but it's also true for SaaS out there, right? So, for instance, if a user is downloading all the documents he has access to, and then is modifying them and purging the history, right? Then it's likely kind of ransomware focusing
Yeah,
on a SaaS, and that's for many security teams that kind of blind spot, unfortunately. And
yeah.
so we have also seen that the SaaS was used to gather the information that then has been used for later stages of the attack. I think was the case with Snowflake, for instance. Yeah, recently. Yeah.
I see another question, which is about a topic that is actually getting hot these days, which is non-human identities.
Hmm.
So the question is, what do you do about them? Like, how do you protect those non-human identities, like service accounts and whoever wrote it's also wrote that rotating the passwords, which was, I guess, the old approach is not always possible. Um, I have obviously my thoughts on that. You want to start, or should I
Oh,
take this one?
please start. And I will share my thoughts after you.
So non-human identities in general, we see as a big threat because they can't do these things like multi-factor authentication that we that gives some protection for our human users. And usually they have a lot of privileges. So attackers are really targeting them. Every data breach we see, they're trying to go for these service accounts, especially the AD service accounts, but also some of the cloud non-human identities. And it takes a different approach because MFA is not an option. So the approach that we take is, obviously it starts from understanding who they are and what they do, like finding all these non-human identities and where they're being used. But then the approach is really it's a zero trust approach in the sense that we understand what the account is supposed to do by looking at what it does every day. And if we saw that this account is used to connect from A to B, every day, and after a period of time of learning that behavior, and the good thing is those accounts usually do the same thing because they're automated, we can lock it down and kind of fence it to only be able to do that. So even if somebody will steal the account and compromise the credentials, they will not be able to do anything except logging in from A to B. And even then, if they do it in a different kind of pattern, different way, we'll be able to see that it's not that automated process anymore. It's somebody else doing something bad. And by doing that, we can block the attackers without actually disrupting the actual application, because the actual application can continue to work uninterrupted. It's only the unauthorized access that will get blocked and reported. We've done with some of the biggest companies in the world this approach, even in cases where there were hundreds of thousands or millions of service accounts. So I think it's really the approach that a lot of organizations will gradually move to, because you can't have these accounts that can take over the entire network and everybody knows their password and you can't even change it because you're worried that some application will break if you change it. Right? That's a bad situation.
Exactly. So it's in other words, it's, I would say, the most efficient approach to apply least privilege, yeah, to service accounts. What is, of course, a good idea, but we all know in the real life that least privilege paradigm, when it comes really to access rights, it's just very complicated, and you just don't know if it's managed very well. But based on your approach, analyzing the activities and then limiting it to that, what you expect from that service account, I think this is just very, very, very efficient and helps to save a lot of time, and at the same time increasing the security posture a lot. And again, I think that's nothing really new. It's just the new thing is just applying that on identities, right? So when it comes to endpoints, having an understanding of what processes are running, what are the typical network connections, and so on. It's applied in other areas a lot, but now doing it for identities is exactly the right step to make sure that we are now using that perimeter in a good way.
Yeah. Should we take a last question or should we?
Yeah, let's take. I think we have time to go through one more
Okay.
question. So
Let's take one more. Maybe I see one about cyber insurance. Do you want to address that? Is that a big drive
let,
for the customers that you talk to?
oh yeah, let's
Um,
talk about that. Yeah.
so someone here is asking about cyber insurance, where the provider told them that they need to enforce MFA on all the privileged accounts. And he says we've done this for the cloud, but we struggle with the AD environment, which we hear a lot, by the way. Like a lot of
Oh yeah.
people are now obligated to put MFA everywhere because of insurance or regulation,
Mm,
and
mm.
it's not always easy, right? There are some systems where it's not as easy to add MFA. Is that, by the way, cyber insurance? Is that something that you see a lot now with customers as a big drive?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So it's often not just about initial contracting, but also when it comes to renewal. Yeah, it's because
Yeah,
as the demand or the requirements are growing, and MFA is one of these areas where it's really sometimes challenging applying that in all situations. I think that's therefore a very very good approach, focusing on Active Directory. The other is about privileged identities, yeah? And then it's the one thing is, hey, okay, we have a privileged access management solution in place, and they're using it, and what is a what is really covered by the PAM, and what is going still ways we didn't want to have anymore. That's then the challenge where you exactly need tools like you are providing with Silverford to have a good understanding who is accessing the Active Directory, what is going on, and being able to have good understanding of the service accounts, and also being able to prevent that special systems are accessed at all without going via the PAM solution for that, right? So there, it's also the possibility enforcing or having a layer to enforce the usage of MFA, to enforce the usage of the PAM solution, and that really that really helps to prove that you fulfill the requirements the
Yeah.
insurance is forcing you to.
You know that from our conversation with customers and with the insurance partners, a few years ago, they only asked for like, do you have MFA in general,
Yeah,
like somewhere?
yeah.
And they learned the hard way, right? They learned in the hard way that this is not enough, and people got
Yeah.
breached a lot, and they lost a lot of money. And now they've evolved, and with some of them, we're actually seeing a long list of things. That's like you need MFA for your exchange, you need MFA for your admin access to these types of servers, you need MFA for your network equipment. So they're much more perspective. They are really telling you exactly where they need it because they understand that this is probably one of the most effective ways to stop the ransomware and these types of threats. But putting it just on your cloud applications is just not enough because people end up getting compromised on-prem, and their AD is really the way to encrypt all the different computers in the network. So they are really now asking specifically for that, and we see a lot of people coming to us for that specifically, like how do you enable MFA for Active Directory and all these legacy protocols. So it's becoming a big thing, which I think is very good because this has been the kind of the back door for attackers for so many years, right?
Mm.
So I'm glad that it's starting to get fixed. There are more questions here, but I think we'll probably take them offline, or people can feel free to reach out to us. The last thing maybe I'll share. I'll put the maybe our last slide is that if anyone want to get an assessment of all of these things we just talked about, this is something that we do offer as partners. We and IC Consult, so we have a free identity risk assessment that we provide. We provide the technology, and IC Consult will help you really understand all of these issues and give you a plan of how can you potentially fix them. And we do that for free, just in order to help people understand if they actually have those risks. Anything, Andre, about like how should people connect with you or reach out for that, or any
Yeah,
other?
please reach out to us via mail, and then let's follow up on that discussion. I think there are a lot of things you can do very fast to improve your security posture, yeah, and getting rid of some of the very huge risks, and yeah, that's my strong recommendation,
Yeah,
because if you are in charge of the digital identities of your organization, yeah, then you really have to take that job very serious, because the impact is tremendous if it's going wrong. We have seen a
yeah,
couple of
and
these
and we see.
examples.
Sorry. And we see pretty much in every company where we run this that we uncover some of these issues that they didn't know about, right? Like users that have privileges they shouldn't have, or the use of legacy protocols, like some server is still using NTLM v1 or clear text LDAP, or some users have an account that hasn't been used for years because they're not with the company anymore and nobody knew that they're still
Mhm.
there, things like that. So I think at the very least, it helps companies understand, where to focus, with or without us. And I am very glad that people are taking identity security more seriously now and investing in it a lot. So I think everyone who joined this session, obviously, the fact that you guys care about that and are trying to improve that, it's a big step and something that I really am happy about. And if there's anything we can do to help, I mean, together, right? This has been a great partnership so far, and anyone who wants to leverage our shared experience, we are happy to do it.
Absolutely.
Anything else before we finish, Andre?
Well, I think we said all the important things, maybe just one. Yeah, the technical debt in our IT systems. Yeah, that's an asset for the attacker. We have to be aware of that, and should do everything that he cannot leverage that. So then I really would like
Absolutely.
to thank you to you, Het. It was great having the discussion today again. And
Yeah,
well, and thank you for everybody participating and asking the question, because I think it makes it more interesting for us than just having the discussion between the both of us.
yeah. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, and thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of the day.
Have a great day and goodbye.